What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. Best case, worst case scenario, what is that for Florida State? This is a team that I'm really high on. If you followed my channel this offseason, you know that. I've had them in the top 4 or 5, or I did them in my pre-spring top 25, and I'll go ahead and tell you they're going to be in the top 5 in my post-spring top 25 as well. This team has a lot of production coming back, a lot of experience coming back. They've added some really nice pieces in the transfer portal. So I think that this team has a chance to be really, really good. No real areas of weakness. Nothing that jumps out to that's make you think that, you know, if they don't do this or if they don't do that, they're going to struggle. I mean, you feel pretty confident about this team all across the board. But the schedule is, you know, it's got some tough games on there. Let's take a look at it. Of course, they open up with LSU. That's going to be a really tough game. They have to go to Clemson. That obviously will be a very tough game. Road games against Wake Forest and Pitt. They also have Florida on the road. You know, rivalry game with Miami, a Duke team that's going to be pretty good. So there are several opportunities for them to trip up. How many times could they trip up? What's the worst case scenario? Well, let's start with the best case scenario. Best case is Jordan Travis stays healthy. The majority of the team stays healthy. You know, Jared Verse is back. He has a big year on that defensive line. Defense continues to get better. Offense continues to get better. And they have the last couple of years, they've gotten better and better. So there's no real reason to think that they won't this year. So as long as they continue to improve, you know, it's possible this team could win every game on the schedule. I know LSU, Clemson, out of those two games, you might say, well, they're just not going to win both of those games. And I, you know, I'm not going to argue too much with that. But I think it's possible. I think they have a chance to win both of those games. And if they don't slip up anywhere else, they could go 12-0. So Southern Miss, Boston College, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, North Alabama. Those are games that I feel very confident in them winning. And then you look at the rest of these games, and again, I think they could win them all. So I've got this team as their best case scenario at 12-0. I think getting to the college football playoff, winning the ACC championship, which that could be tough, having to beat Clemson twice potentially. Maybe it's not Clemson. Maybe they play NC State or Duke or something. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. But getting to the playoff, winning a national championship, I think is possible. You know, I didn't include them on my list of teams that could win it all. I don't think the odds are very high that they're going to do that. I think getting to the playoff would be a huge step forward for this program. But looking at that regular season, I think best case is 12-0. I think they could possibly pull that off. Again, LSU and Clemson winning both of those games will obviously be very tough. So let's get back to now the schedule here and look at the worst case scenario. So you got LSU, Clemson, Duke, Wake Forest, Pittsburgh, Miami, and Florida. All of these games are games that could potentially trip them up. If they lost all of these games, they'd go 5-7. So I guess that's really the absolute worst case scenario, but that's not going to happen. I would be very shocked if that happened. It would take a lot of injuries or something for them to lose that many games. So realistically, worst case, I was really kind of back and forth on a couple of different records here. You know, they could lose to LSU and Clemson. That wouldn't be too surprising. And then with Miami and Florida, 2 rivalry games, they could possibly lose one of those games, although I think they're going to be favored, and I do expect them to win both of those games. And then you've got Duke, Wake Forest, and Pittsburgh, 3 games there in a row that aren't going to be easy. I mean, Pittsburgh, that's going to be a pretty tough game on the road. Duke, I'm telling you, is going to be a good team. So maybe they slip up in one of those games. So I was going to go with 9-3, but I think 8-4 is probably the worst case scenario. I think, again, LSU and Clemson could be losses. Then you lose one of those 3 from Duke to Pittsburgh, and then you either lose to Miami or Florida. Not necessarily these 4 games. I just kind of picked out 4 random games just to show you how it could possibly play out. And again, would it shock anyone if they went 8-4? I don't think so. I think 9-3, maybe that's their worst case scenario, but we're talking about a team that really has only had one good year last year, so possibly some things don't work out for them this year. They slip back into some bad habits, whatever happens, and maybe they lose 4 games. So I think that's probably the worst case scenario. Again, 9-3, maybe that should be the worst case scenario. I just don't. There's no way this team finishes worse than 8-4. I would be shocked if they finish worse than 8-4. I think that's the worst case scenario. I think they're going to do better than that. Obviously, not going to give away my prediction here. Maybe I've got them at 12-0, maybe 11-1, maybe 10-2. I'll go ahead and tell you right now, I've got this team going 10-2, 11-1, or 12-0. I haven't finished my predictions, but I do expect my predictions to have Florida State probably at 10-2 or 11-1 because I'm really high on this team, like I said. So 8-4, worst case, 12-0, best case. What are your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below.